Hello, Five Oaks and Rachel Carson Falcons. Welcome to another episode of Read with Force. I'm Mrs. Zimmerman here again with my friend, Mrs. Perenboom. Hello, Mrs. Perenboom.
Hello, Miss Zimmerman.
And we are so excited to have our friends with us, but maybe even some of your friends too. We get to have Mrs. Redding and Mrs. Petersen here with us today. Hi, guys. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
So if you come to Five Oaks Rachel Carson Middle School, probably one of the first faces you see will be either Mrs. Redding or Mrs. Petersen. But just in case you haven't met them in person, I will have them tell you what they do. So Mrs. Redding, let's start with you. What do you do at Five Oaks Rachel Carson?
Well, I do a lot. Mostly I do attendance. So if you guys are sick or, have appointments, your parents call into the attendance line and I'm the one that manages that. And then when we're back in person, it's just I kind of sign you guys in when you come in late and sign you out when you leave. And then just help answer the phones and then help out with Mrs. Petersen and Miss Myers with just many, many, many things.
So many things. And Mrs. Petersen, they would see you too.
They would. And I am the one that they would come to if unfortunately, if they're sick or if they need to talk to someone in administration or, I'm just kind of there to guide them to where they need to go. And
here's a little hint. Mrs. Petersen likes to talk. So a lot of times you will see students in there just talking to talk to Mrs. Petersen.
I was going to say,
that's what she does.
I listen and I talk.
And she might have candy.
No, don't say that. And then I will help with everyone else in the office. We answer the phones and we help parents. And that's pretty much it.
But then when you guys are coming to school for
letters, so you all can read a great newsletter.
Yep, exactly. That's right. You do the newsletter. So yeah, so much stuff. But these are the faces of Five Oaks Rachel Carson for sure when you come in. This is who you'll see. And we all have something in common, and that is that we love to read and that we've loved to read ever since we were kids and have so much to share with you.
So, I loved to read as a kid. My parents were divorced, and whenever I would go to my dad's house on the weekends, this is a very true story, my dad would complain to my mom, all Erin does when she comes over here is read a book. She's just always got her nose in a book, which was totally true because it was an escape for me. Like, not that I didn't love spending time with my dad every other weekend, but it was just a different environment. And I'm more of a homebody, so I preferred being at home anyway. So I just read a book. Reading books were an escape for me. And then my stepmom, she would always do really cool things. Like she would figure out when libraries were selling their old books that they didn't want to carry on their shelves anymore. And then she would take me and we would like load up grocery bags filled with books. And so I found some real gems that way. Just love to read.
What about you, Mrs. Petersen? Did you like to read when you were a kid?
I did, but I also played sports year round. And so it's kind of one of those children that I would read like 5 in a row in like a week and then nothing for 2 weeks. And then another 5 in a row, it just was, so it wasn't a constant every single day consistently, but when I did, I really got into it and just went straight upstairs to my room and loved it. So it was really fun. And to piggyback what Miss Redding said is I loved when our school would be finished with books and then they'd say, come in, and they would actually just give them to us. They're like, whatever you guys want, we're done with these, we're finished with these books. And that's how you got some really great books. And you didn't have to ask your parents because you didn't need money. You just went and got them. So it was really nice. And I think that's probably how a lot of kids had books at home in our school and read a lot because of that.
Cool. Well, for those of you who don't know, we actually do the same thing when you're back in the building.
Mhm.
We will actually give you some of our old books as well.
See, I didn't even know you did that.
Yeah, we sure do. We sure do. So
Yep. So, we were talking about this when you asked us, and it was so funny because so many books just came pouring out of Roseanne and I, Mrs. Petersen and I, from when we were kids. I love a good mystery. I love a good, keep me on my toes, what's going to happen next kind of book. So I kind of always liked that. So when I was in probably fifth grade, middle school, I started reading books by an author named Lois Duncan, and her books would probably still scare me. You too? Yeah.
Yes.
So, Down the Dark Hall and Stranger with My Face. I mean, there was some creepy stuff going on in those books. And it's funny that I haven't actually introduced those to my own kids because I actually forgot about her until we started talking. I was like, oh my gosh, who was that author? And I had to search like a name. And another author that I was big for me was Judy Blume. So any of her books were just priceless. One of my favorites was Blubber, and because they just all had such a nice message, right? Like real life message. Um, and then I really liked L.M. Montgomery. So Anne of Green Gables. So I know I have like such a weird eclectic, but Anne of Green Gables was a good one. And my kids, my now 17-year-old, she poured through all of the Anne of Green Gables books when she was in fifth grade, sixth grade. She loved them all. Maddie, my eighth grader, she really liked El Defo, which is that graphic novel. She loves graphic novels. So that was a favorite one for her. I think she has probably almost every book that author has written. And then she's currently reading One of Us is Lying.
So good.
And then she has the sequel, One of Us is Next. So kind of that suspense. And the other thing too, my older daughter and I, we've been reading these books by Ruth Ware, and those are more adult books, but they're suspense for sure, kind of keep you on your toes. So I'll read it and then I'll pass it over to her and then she'll read it. And then we kind of have a little mini book club and talk about what's happened.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Those Lois Duncan books, we have a whole bunch of them in our library. Totally, like, those are the books that I would sneak because my mom didn't want me to read them because they were too scary. And we've talked about this before. I don't do scary books. It gives me nightmares. But those, when I was in middle school, like, all I wanted to read was Lois Duncan because they were just a little bit edgy and a little bit scary. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yep.
And Ransom. There was one with the kids on the school bus, and there's like a crash, and then they get kidnapped. So good stuff.
Killing Mr.
Quality.
Griffin.
Yes.
Oh. Those are not my Disney princess fairy tales.
No,
I love historical fiction. Any ounce of historical fiction I can get my hands on. I really like to have that lens into a different time and a different world. And so, yeah.
I love that. I love that there are going to be kids watching this who will hear something and want to come talk to you about it because it's just, no matter who we talk to around the school, we all have different tastes. We like some things are different. So it's perfect for, kids to find that soulmate in the book that they're looking for. So I hope that kids just have one more thing to talk to you about when they see you, first thing when they come to school.
I have quite a love with World War II, in not the sense of what it was about, but just how we all can learn from that era and that war. And it's just intriguing. It's intriguing how all the minds worked differently and how they all felt they were doing the right thing. And Yeah.
So what are some books that taught you more, or that you could read that would, pique that interest a little bit?
So when I was young, the first book I read was The Diary of Anne Frank in elementary school. And I read it probably 4 or 5 times. I just would get through it, read it again. I just couldn't believe that this was a true story. So I would try to imagine being her, and I really put myself in all the situations of that book, like how it would be to be the boy that that was in the family, and that, I mean, it's just to hide someone. And then I actually went to Amsterdam and went there, and it was really interesting because in my mind, though the book describes it very well, to see it for real life was just, oh God, I mean, it was just crazy. And they don't have homes like our American homes in the city. So you wouldn't have imagined that it was really, really tiny. It was, but very well made home. And you can imagine that they were up there for so long. And yeah, anywho. So, and then I read a book on the resistance of World War II. And that is when I really got into how these amazing people, the courage they had to help all these people. And they were just common, or, ordinary housewives. Actually, most of them were. There was a big group of women who would leave their babies with other moms so they could go and save and make passports or, documents to get them out and into the country next to them, or the country that wasn't being so overtaken by.
Wow.
So anywho,
I will be buying that tonight.
What?
I'll be buying it tonight.
Oh, yeah. So then my boys, I have 14-year-old twin boys, and they also love World War II, probably because I talked about it all the time. And so anyway, my boys read The Book Thief, and they read The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And I think that it's good for children to read these books for the reason that, one, they couldn't imagine living in a situation like that ever, and nor do we ever want that ever to happen again to any human. But I think my children, and I think most children, would understand and have sympathy and empathy for someone their own age that is going through something, or someone younger than them that they know how that age, they've been through that age before, so they can kind of feel what that child must be going through when you're reading the books. The books are so greatly written that they're just, you really can feel like you're in the situation with the children.
Okay, so we were talking at the beginning, which kind of changed my book that I was going to share with you all today, because Miss Petersen told us that her kids have read The Giver. And then I realized that, like, I can't believe I haven't talked about The Giver with you all. The Giver is like my all-time favorite. It is my go-to when I don't know what to read. I go and I find my copy of The Giver. And it is dystopian, which is kind of hard to read right now for some people, but that's all right. So it takes place in some futuristic world where everyone has a specific role in the community. Like when you turn a certain age, you get to do a certain thing. Like at a certain age, you get a bicycle, and at a certain age, you get to get a specific haircut. And at a certain age, you get to wear a certain type of clothing, and you get to go on certain adventures, and you get to learn different things in different, like at the different grades of school, right? And Jonah is the main character. And when he turns 15, I think it's 15, it might be 13. They are assigned a job, and that's going to be your job for forever. And so they start like an apprenticeship at, I think it's 13. And Jonah has been selected to be the receiver of memories.
Oh.
And so one person in the community holds all of the memories, and nobody knows why. Like, it's just the way things are. Like, this is how things are. And Jonah, through his journey, starts to realize that maybe things aren't quite as awesome as the people think they are. The Giver is the first book, and it's actually, there's 4 books, but it's not really a series. They're companion novels. So you don't have to read them in order. I love it. It's amazing. My first year teaching, I got to go on a field trip with 6th graders to see the play. And that was what like totally sparked the light for me when I saw the production of this story. And it was like, this, I love it. It's a great, great story.
Well, and I wanted to mention that one of the books that Mrs. Redding talked about was Anne of Green Gables, and then Mrs. Petersen, Diary of Anne Frank, and now You, the Giver. All of those are pretty much classics, you know, in literature, but also we have graphic novels of each one of them. So sometimes people are a little bit intimidated when they go into a novel and there's a lot of text, but they still want to get the story. So the graphic novel is a great option to get the story in your head. And then if you want to go further and read the whole novel, it's just a great way to be into that. So we do have the graphic novels for each one of those stories.
But there's a graphic novel for Diary of Anne Frank.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
How did I not know that?
It's new.
I'd like to see it.
It's new. Okay.
There was this graphic novel that Kendall, I swear, she checked out probably 20 times from the library when she was at her old elementary school, to the point where I'm like, we just need to buy it. It was Rapunzel. And it was
yeah, Rapunzel by Nathan Hale.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that kid, like, she would bring that. I'm like, we have Rapunzel again. Okay.
That's a good one.
I do think we did end up buying it just because. Holy smokes.
That's a good one. I'm going to share with you something along the line that Mrs. Petersen was sharing, and that is a book called Making Bombs for Hitler.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, this author has written a few novels about World War II, but something Mrs. Petersen said just about being a kid in World War II, somebody your age or a little bit older, maybe. This particular story is about a girl, Jewish girl, who, though her mother was taken to the concentration camps, she got put to work. And so making bombs for Hitler was her job. And it tells you about how she was treated, not very well. But what happens if you're in charge of putting the explosive, or what makes the explosive in the bomb? What happens if you just don't put that in and then the bombs just die when they go? That is the mission that she decided to put herself on. But once she's found out, that's deadly. So what happens in that story? And so that is a book too that you all might be interested in that era. So fascinating stuff. Well,
that, and they loved it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
really
loved it in the sense that it was very good.
Yeah, and we have a lot. If you are interested, some of you are really interested in World War II, some of you in the Vietnam War, some, especially since the movie 1917 came out last year, World War I, and now we've got the Afghanistan and the Iraq War. All tragedies for sure, but the more we know and the more we learn about this, the more we know to avoid things like this in the future. So we hope. So Mrs. Redding and Mrs. Petersen, thank you so much for being on Read with Force and sharing your reads with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
All right, Falcons. Until next week, we hope that we will see you checking out lots of books, and we hope we will see you reading, and we will come again with more books. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.